survey of alums of New England Conservatory showed that 96% of alumni teach in some way or another. And you think even the most successful musicians in the world, people across the street in Pop Symphony, teach as well. So it's so much a part of what it means to be a musician, but often we don't think about or talk about what that actually means from a business standpoint as an entrepreneur. And very early on in the semester, I think the second week, we visited the piano playground, which is run by Alyssa O'Toole, who, like you, is an entrepreneur who runs a series, a gym for pianists who can take group classes and can work together, mostly for adult learners in contrast to children. But I was just wondering if you could talk about how you started this up, what you've learned along the way, what the continuing challenges are, things like that.
Very good question. So I started off, I'm forgetting in the Tiponeo building, there's a service that offers free business mentorship. I'm sorry, I can send it to you, but I'm forgetting the name right now. But through networking, before I get to that, side note, network. Talk to people. And put yourself out there. And so through networking, I met somebody that told me about this free mentorship service. Essentially, you go online and you put in your interests, and they match you with a mentor that would give you, you set up a meeting twice a month, once a week if possible, and you go in there, and these are retired folk, that have worked in an area that's either similar to yours or that is directly connected to what you're looking to do, and they guide you, and it's all free, and so, but through that, they also host several events, networking events. They give you classes on elevator pitch, different versions of it, and stuff like that. And they have different contests where you could win prizes and so on, although I never entered any of those. That's sort of how it all started. And I started it when I was at Lesley as an undergraduate. And so I was, directly taking what I was learning. Something that I failed to mention was I was hired as a drum teacher at an elementary school in Brookline. And so over time I learned that, well, this is what rhythm has done to me, and I was just kind of bringing different connections and connecting the dots, and it made sense to me that there needs to be a different method of learning, not necessarily going against the education system, but is a supplementary learning structure that is integral in developing social-emotional learning skills. And so that's sort of where I started, is developing the framework for drums and wellness. And so simultaneously, I was getting free business mentorship. I was, theory to practice what I was learning. I was doing research on it, and I was, taking it directly to my students, and I was working to develop the framework, and then launched the business when I was in college. And so the last part of it, the challenge, the ongoing challenge, is capital.
Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, and so with the Boston Public Schools, it was great. They offered me this really, really great position, and then when it came down to actually signing the contract, everything changed.
Oh, really?
It changed.
Since we talked.
So I'm not working there anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I falsely introduced you. So.
No, you didn't know. You didn't know. And so I sorry I didn't tell you, but it came down to it, and it was like, oh, well, this is not really what we talked about. right? And now you're offering me this thing that's completely different, and the pay was completely different, and it just, so I didn't sign the contract after all, and then at that point I had already a lot of people that I had lined up to do business with. Good thing I didn't sign a contract with anybody, but I went to all of my clients and said, hey, you know, I'm doing this thing. And so here's the thing I learned is don't cut off things with people unless you already have something solid going on paper. So that was the mistake I made. You know, and I made a lot of mistakes. I lost a lot of money over the summer. And again, with contracts that, you know, people say they're gonna do this one thing and then they go ahead and do something completely different, you know, working with many different kids, many days during the week, and they expect you to do it for little to no money. And it's like, no, this is actually, you know, more than just, even if this was babysitting, like glorified babysitting, you know, so it's not that, right? And so definitely, I learned a lot in that area. And so what I decided was, okay, instead of going back, you know, I'm not gonna go back to all those clients and say, oh, well, you know, things have changed and all those, all that. So, but for running my own business for about 4 years now, I learned a lot about sales. Again, transferable skills, right? Like, allow yourself to learn things that are other than what you do directly. And so I learned a lot about sales. And so now I'm applying for work in tech startups or any tech industry, either software or hardware, in sales or consulting jobs, right? And so, you know, I'm more than willing to learn, you know, and point me in the right direction, and I'll go do it. With the same goal still in place, okay? So something you should know is the overarching goal for Drums and Wellness was always so that I can go ahead and build a school back in Congo, where I'm from, right? And so by going in and working for someone, somewhere, that would allow me to hopefully acquire the capital that I'll need to invest in little compound and so on and so forth, and you know, and save, that would down the road allow me to build in the education center, build a school back home, right? And so that's the overarching goal, right? It's still there. Again, my plan has changed, right? My plan has changed a little bit, but the goal doesn't have to change, because I'm not choosing to hold on to my plan so tightly, right? You know, and so that's kind of where things are as far as the business development goes. Yeah. Question?
Have you ever considered going like the nonprofit route, or is it just too complicated? Or in like grant funding, I know it's like impossible, but
Too complicated.
yes.
I don't know why it's like that.
Yeah, it's awful.
I'm like, I don't want to try to understand why it's like that. So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that you need to,
Yeah.
board members and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
There's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
It's like you spend a lot of your time, you know, just doing a lot of paperwork and dealing with overhead.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot. So that direction, I considered it. And if you do it really well, it's not like you can't make money as a nonprofit. You can, but I think, you know, although money is important, for me, the reason why I'm doing this is to make a difference in the lives of people, right? And to some people, they would say, well, then why don't you make it a nonprofit? Well, I want to make a living while making a difference in the lives of people. So doing a nonprofit doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, I have to walk around without, like, that doesn't mean that I have to go without so that I can make a difference in the lives of other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so the way I look at it is like, okay, well, if I go and acquire capital somewhere else and I invest it in a little compound and over time I can have more, that allows me to do more for more people, right? And with the right partners, we can bring in, you know, people that would teach or study abroad programs that would, you know, help be there for, I don't know, a couple of months, you know, and have the resources to help not only fund, but also to keep it going and teach and so on. I don't have it all figured out, but at least that's the thought, right? Like, you need capital in order to make things like that possible. So yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah. Anybody else? Oh, you have a question. It's burning.
Yeah, I do. But
Sure, go ahead.
I think I wrote this in the.
Yeah.
We got questions. Wait.
Sure thing. Take your time.
Yeah. 'Cause, well, I guess it's my question is simple. It's I think part of your presentation actually answer. Yeah, your presentation answered part of my question.
Sure.
But just wonder, like, cause we gonna, well, including myself, and where I'm now, either already are working as a music educator or will be the music educator. As most likely, you know, the academic trained musicians will end up to be. So, and we just read this article, you know, the topic for this class is you know, in the regard of a growing mindset, and it's just like a, you know, like overlapping with a lot of your teaching approach.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so do you have any like, I would say, specific strategies or some ideas or suggestions for us, like we can incorporate into our teaching skills and mentoring skills to, like, you know, help our students stay or grow, or, you know, help them develop this or stay in the state of a growth mindset through music, learning of music, or, you know, and to help in the learning of other subjects.
Absolutely.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah,
It's kind of a long question.
No, I get it. Your
try to
question
remember.
is, do I have any suggestions? So
Right.
we're looking at growth mindset, and do I have any suggestions as to how, as educators, we can help the students to stay in the
Right.
growth
Yeah.
mindset, right?
Yeah.
We ourselves have to be in the growth mindset.
Mhm.
We cannot teach or tell other people to be in a position that we are not ourselves willing to practice. That's why think, feel, express comes in. That's why self-expression and being willing to leave our comfort zone comes in. There's a book I'm gonna suggest. It's on grit. It's called Grit. Angela Duckworth. If you haven't read that book, please do it.
Cool.
Grit.
Yeah.
Or
Good.
if you want to read some of it, you can take the next semester's MIE class.
Ah, yeah.
We're gonna do some grit
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
next semester, so.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and I, you know, and so for me, I put myself in positions that are, I feel challenging for me. Standing in front of people and presenting is not necessarily hard, but preparing, you know, managing my time, making sure like all those things are things that are pretty challenging for me, right? So like, it's like thinking about how much time am I leaving to be able to do those things, right? And so you know, thinking about that and practicing it so that I show up 10 minutes early or something, right? So that I don't show up 10 minutes later, stuff like that, practicing it because it's hard for me to do that. It's challenging, right? And just preparing in general, like you have to prepare, like otherwise, like I wouldn't have anything to really talk about, right? So it's challenging for me. So I have to make sure that I'm leaving enough time. And a discipline that I do, I call it the 5-5-5 discipline. I don't know if I told you about this. 5-5-5 discipline is every single day, 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, I wake up at 5 a.m. So 5 days a week, 5 a.m. for 5 weeks. So you pick a goal. You pick an area of your life that you want to work on, a goal, and you set a discipline. At least for me, it's waking up and I'm religious, so I pray and I work out. You know, and my goal right now is doing 100 push-ups a day. So I do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 crunches, right? Like all of it. So wake up and do. So like so that's for me. Over time, it's developing grit, but it's also training my mind, training my body, right? And so 5 a.m. and then by the time it's like noon, I've already had a lot done. I've already had a lot of hours, you know. And when I was doing drums and wellness full time, by the time it was noon, I had already made a bunch of phone calls, sent a bunch of emails, you know, and and then I would go teach after school where I was contracted. I would go teach after school, you know, and it's like, oh yeah, I already got a lot done. And by the time I go to bed at 9 p.m., I had a full day and I got things done. So I'm not rushing from one thing to another because I gave myself an extra 2 hours. Stuff like that, right? That's just, you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m., right? But for me, I'm an extremist. When it comes to that stuff, you know, and so, but yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, yeah, and also like through you know, like you say, you just mentioned like music is powerful, and I think music can help people be engaged with like strengthen their minds and like I would say emotional flow and stuff like that. And so there definitely something to do with the growth mindset, like, you know, being thinking like positively, like when, you know, there are problems you have to confront and things you have to, you know, get done and stuff like that. And I think to be a music teacher or teaching any subjects related to music, it might sort of like I guess it's a channel, or it's a you know opportunity there to help students or learners like get engaged with strengthening their minds rather than just like, you know, dealing with let's say comparison much more dull subject like math or language. You know, you see what I'm saying? So yeah, so that's my question. My question is is any particular skills and like you apply to use for help your students like grow in that subject, in that manners, you know, rather than just like, okay, you're relaxed now, you're taking music lesson and also, you know, like that, if there comes a part that you have to practice, spend time with them, then you still saying. Yeah,
there's a huge mentorship part of what
mentorship
I do, right? It's a lot of it.
Yeah, and then what's your like your approach to that? Yeah.
Listening, communication, collaboration, and self-expression. Those are the 4 main areas. And it happens in music, and it happens out there in the world. It's happening right now, in this moment. Right? And like, we need it not just as musicians, but we need it as people in the world. How we listen directly dictates how we're going to communicate to one another, with one another, directly dictates how we collaborate, work together, which informs our self-expression. And we're looking at genuine self-expression here, not like the authentic self-expression, because here's the truth, is that like, we're not always going to be happy. It's not always going to be rainbows and unicorns all the time. It's not. I have negative thoughts. We're human. right? It's not always gonna, but it's a matter of how we react to those thoughts. That's what makes a difference. How we're listening to it, how we allow ourselves to be with it, that's gonna make a difference. Yesterday I had a car accident, right? And it was bad. Like, but here's the thing. My reaction to it is what's allowing me to be here. That's allowing me to do the things I was able to get done today. Right? And so does that make sense?
Mm.
So again, it comes back to ourselves. If we want other people to do things, we ourselves have to be willing to do it ourselves so that we can effectively mentor other, because music learning is not just about this. Can you do this, please?
Yeah.
Everybody, just do this.
And I'm just like.
And then try this.
Okay.
This is where we want to be, right? And I guess sometimes you're gonna have this, but we want to be here with some of this sometimes, but not all the time, This feels better for me at least.
Oh yeah, I was sorry for I was interrupting, but I think I can I'm kind of becoming more specific. Like my idea is, my question is, so how do you, because all you have what you have said is just wonderful. I think this is exactly I am expecting as a teacher to really deliver all these ideas and message to my students, but I still find it's kind of difficult through conventional type of music teaching to deliver such an message that help students get all that stuff through the
Thank you.
through the process of learning, learning music. So I would just make my lost question short. How do you maybe you can give an example how you would incorporate this ideas into your teaching, maybe just one example, through drumming or right?
That's a very good question, and you're right. Through conventional music learning, it's challenging.
It's challenging, isn't it?
Drums and wellness is not conventional
Right.
at its core. It was created because private music lessons are expensive. And if you see, most people who are able to afford private music lessons are people in a demographic that have the money to do it. Not everybody is able to afford it. And so I wanted to create something that is across the board that you're able to bring to everybody, that everybody can have, that gives them the tools that you would get in music lessons, but it's not about becoming a virtuoso or becoming it's just about giving you an introductory basis to rhythm, to music, to self-expression, to you as the person who's playing the music. And you know what? And if you want to do more, and if you want to learn more because now you're given these tools, then you can do that because you've been inspired, you've been touched and moved in such a way that you're I want to learn more, right? And there are possibilities to do that. You can come to NEC, you can go to Berkeley, you can, right? And so my job is to make available these tools, and the kids themselves, or I work mostly with kids, they can choose. They can choose, right? And so it's not so much, I don't give kids homework unless they want it. And some kids I'm okay, I want you to, so I mostly ask, what I do is every class we do a word of the day. So you bring a word of the day that's inspiring or something that's, whatever, and then we talk about it in relation to our class, as we're learning, right? So stuff like that, and so I want them to come to class prepared in their mind so that they're ready to receive, but because I want to learn from them as well. And I think if we think about it as an exchange, that we're not just giving, but we're receiving as well, that there's a lot that we can actually make available to our students, right? Because we're not just over here as I'm the teacher, you're the student, but it's no, there's an exchange that's happening here, And it's not that like I have all the knowledge that I need to put into you. That like, no, I have experience that is gonna help you learn, and you know things that I can learn from as well. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Well,
Yes.
John, you've been extraordinarily generous with
Yeah.
your time.
Yeah,
This
thank
is
you
the
so
topic.
much.
Many of you
Yeah.
have classes to go to, and I have to go to last class.